Okay, today's aim you'll see is ever so slightly different. With somebody with a raised hand, tell me the difference between today's aim and yesterday's aim. Is it Lally? That we're dealing with inequalities. So instead of saying identify 3 forms of linear equations, it says identify 3 forms of linear inequalities and put them in slope-intercept form. We're going to talk about what this means in terms of our solutions when we get ready to graph them. For today, we're going to do just what we've been doing before. We're going to be thinking about solving the inequalities and putting them in slope-intercept form. When it comes to inequalities, linear inequalities, the forms are exactly the same. The only difference is that you replace the equation symbols with inequality symbols. Now, if you go way back, we can already come up with our 2 key points. When it came to solving inequalities, when we just had single variable inequalities, what were our 2 key points? Does anybody remember? We went from solving 2x plus 3 is equal to 6 to 2x plus 3 is greater than 6, and we had 2 key points. Yes? Absolutely. So that's the second key point. When dividing both sides by a negative, I'm also going to put in here or multiplying. When dividing or multiplying both sides by a negative, you must flip the inequality symbol. Same thing's going to be true today. With 2 variables, same deal. Does anybody remember what the first key point was when we were moving from solving equations to solving inequalities? Yes, ma'am. Make sure each side is simplified. That's the exact same first step as solving equations, right? So the first key point is that solving inequalities is the same thing, same steps as solving equations. So solving inequalities uses the same steps as solving equations. So what does that mean? The only thing that's going to be different about today than yesterday? What's the only thing that's going to be different from today from yesterday? What is the only thing that's going to be different? Selena? There's going to be an inequality symbol, and what do we need to do special for that inequality symbol? Flip it if we multiply or divide by a negative. So that's it. That's all. All right? So looking at this, we need to do the same first step with this first problem that we did with any other problem yesterday, and that was to help get the y term alone. What inverse operation do I need to do to get the y term alone? Yura. There's no distribution that needs to be done here. These parentheses are only here to help identify that this is a negative 3y, not a plus and a minus. Brianna? Yeah, so we've got both sides simplified here, so we're ready to do inverse operations. We always start with additive inverses. So we need to move something away from the y. We're going to add a negative 4x to both sides. leaves me with negative 3y is greater than negative 4x plus 6. We have the y term alone, which leaves us with one inverse operation. Ms. Banks, what is that inverse operation? We already got the negative 4x, we got the negative 4x moved. We got the y term alone. We want to solve for y. So we have one inverse operation left. Put a what? A what? A what? Negative 3. Because a negative 3 has to cancel out with a negative 3. Now, Ms. Banks, based on what you told us earlier, what should be jumping out in our heads as I'm doing this? That we have to flip the inequality symbol. So here we go. Flip the inequality symbol. Not a big deal. This cancels out. Y is going to be less than, distribute this in, negative 4 over negative 3x plus 6 over negative 3. How can I simplify this just a little bit more? Sammy? Okay, so this gives us not 2. It's a bad date. Negative 2. Is there any way we can simplify the negative 4 divided by negative 3? Brianna? Positive 4 over 3. This is a good date. So we get y is less than 4/3 x plus negative 2. Okay, this is now in slope-intercept form. It's an inequality, but it's a slope-intercept form. Let's get y is something, some inequality symbol, mx plus b. When we get ready to graph this, we're going to graph it just like it's an equation, and then we're going to do some extra stuff with it. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. Let's go down. This is in what form, by the way? Got to get used to these forms. Adriel, this is in standard form. So again, same thing as with inequalities as is equations. It's just got an inequality symbol instead. We've got something y, or coefficient y, coefficient x added together, and a constant on the other side. What is it that we need to do to solve this for y? Because we want to put it in slope-intercept form. First step. Sandra. So you want to move the 4y. However, remember, we want the 4y to be alone. So we probably don't want to move the 4y. So we need to get rid of the 3/5 x. So what are we going to add to both sides? Negative 3/5 x. Perfect. So again, we have to just be very careful with these, is make sure that we're keeping track of our inequality symbol. With equations, it's really easy. If we forgot our equal sign, we can just throw it in at the end, and it doesn't really matter. Here we have to make sure that we keep our inequality symbol going the same way until something happens that requires it to change. All right, so here we end up with 4y is less than negative 3/5 x plus 6. Now, I added a negative 3/5 x to both sides. Should I have flipped the inequality symbol? Kip yes or kip no? I added a negative 3/5 x to both sides. Should I have flipped the inequality symbol?
No.
No, adding a negative is totally okay. It's when it comes to multiplying or dividing a negative that's important. What inverse operation do I need to do to finish getting the y alone here? Sammy?
There's a question. Couldn't we just simplify 5 over 3? No, never mind. No. The last step we could do is probably divide 4 each y 4, y to negative 3, 5, x plus 6.
Okay, so we divide both sides by 4. Again, always making sure that we're dividing the entire side by 4. This is that one that you guys need to make sure that you're engaging your brains on when you're ready to do the actual arithmetic. We're not flipping the inequality symbol because we divided by a positive, but we have negative 3/5 x divided by 4. When you don't write out this division, you make a mistake. Because when you don't write out the division, you don't think to yourselves, I was taught dividing fractions is easy as pie. I need to flip the second and multiply. So here we need to take this, turn it into a fraction, flip the second, negative 3/5. Now flipping it makes it 1/4 and multiply. Gives me negative 3/20. Negative 3/20, don't forget your x, plus 6 over 4 simplifies to 3 over 2. Here we are. Y inequality or equation symbol mx plus b. Yes, sir. We should not change it to it's a negative because we have a positive divided by a positive. That's a good date.
When do we change it?
When it's a negative divided by a negative or a negative divided by a positive. When it's some sort of date that makes it change. All right, next one. What form of an inequality is this? Thank you for raising your hands this time. Esteban. Yeah, this is clearly point slope. Nothing tricky here. It's both subtractions, x and y on the right sides, slope on the outside of the parentheses. What's the first thing that we need to do to solve this inequality? Esteban. Leave, change, switch, and distribute. Y plus negative 4 is less than 6 times x, and 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. We're really, really close to having ourselves in y is less than mx plus b form here. This was point slope form. Y plus negative 4 plus 4, adding that 4 to both sides, 6x plus negative 24 plus 4. Y is less than 6x plus negative 20. I'm going to go back through my work because I know this is the most important part. The different thing about this, looking at that key point, is knowing whether we need to flip or not. I'm going to go back through my work and make sure I didn't do any multiplications or divisions by negatives. And I see that I didn't. So I definitely should still have the inequality symbol going the same way. So when you get done with your work with problems like these, when there are inequalities involved, you should pretty much always go back through and look for multiplications or divisions by a negative. That way you'll make sure you identify any mistakes that you might have made along the way. It's an excellent way to check your work. All right, finally, one last problem. What form of an inequality is this? Don't get tricked here. Jasmine. Other. It's very close to standard form. In one step, we can make it standard form. And actually, that's our first step to solving this anyway. So what can we do? What step could we do that's going to turn this into standard form? Jasmine. Add a negative 8 to both sides. So negative 3y plus negative 4x plus 8 plus negative 8. keep my inequality symbol going the same way, 0 plus negative 8. Next, it's going to leave me with negative 3y plus negative 4x is less than negative 8. So now it's in standard form. So what we did there is we did one inverse operation to help clear something away from the y term. Now what inverse operation do we need to do to clear something further away from the y term? Continue clearing out things on the side of the y term. Richard. As a positive 4x to both sides, so I have negative 3y plus negative 4x plus 4x. Still not multiplying or dividing by a negative, so I'm going to keep my inequality symbol the same way. I'm going to commute that addition of 4x to the front. Gives me negative 3y is less than 4x plus negative 8. So that leaves me with one last inverse operation that I need to do to get y alone. Geronimo, what's that inverse operation we need to do? Divide by a negative 3. This side cancels out, giving us the y. Here we have 4 divided by negative 3, x, and negative 8 divided by negative 3. Anthony's brain's engaged. Anthony, you're the first one to notice. What's up?
Aren't you supposed to flip it in equation?
Absolutely. So, notice